And then after this, there is usually a B story or a love story, and this usually happens that they discuss the theme of the movie. The nugget of truth again comes up like it was in Team Stated, but this time it's discussed directly with the hero, and it's usually a discussion between the main character and the hero and his love interest or will-be love interest. And that's why the B story is also called a love story. In the Matrix, Trinity gives Neo the strength to believe that he is indeed the one. And in the Star Wars, Han Solo and Princess Leia are introduced, and Han Solo is already living the adventurous life that Luke is longing for. But Luke sees him kind of as without scruples and low morality, and Han Solo, he sees Luke as just a farm boy and not really a hero material. But all that is going to change in the end. And then the next plot point is something called a promise of the premise, or fun and games. So this is where the premise of the movie, all the fun you see from the trailers and whatnot is happening. So the hero is now in the upside down reality, the unknown world that he has left his known behind, and is moving into the unknown. And he's now exploring and testing the boundaries of the new upside down reality that he now finds himself in. And this is usually kind of lighthearted and fun before the real seriousness starts later. So in the Matrix, Neo enters the virtual program, the construct, and Morpheus teaches him to fight and to jump super high and long, and basically to bend the rules of the Matrix. And in Star Wars, Luke and his new friends, they escape Tatooine, that's Luke's home slave planet. They jump into hyperspace, and Luke begins his Jedi training. And this planet, Alderaan, is destroyed by the Death Star. Then, at the midpoint, that is the very midpoint of the movie, and this, depending on which story is being told, the midpoint is either a false defeat or a false victory. It's the apex of the story, and after the midpoint the story will gradually descend to its destination. And usually there is a big revelation or happening or insight or something that happens at the midpoint. The midpoint of the movie is usually a very big deal, or no, almost always a very big deal. And in Matrix, Neo goes to the clairvoyant oracle to see if he is really the one, but she says that he is not. So this is a false defeat. And Luke and his team get sucked into the Death Star, which is also a false defeat. So then, now the more serious stuff starts. The fun and games is definitely over now, and this is the next beat is called, or plot point is called, Bad Guys Close In. And now doubt, jealousy, fear, and foes, it can be physical enemies or even emotional regrouping within the team. It can be many different things, but this is the big squeeze is now starting. The main character's goal seems harder to reach, and the bad guys are pushing on forward and attacking, and basically the world is collapsing around the hero, and trouble is starting to get close. So this is in the Matrix is when Cypher famously betrays his team and he allows the agents to capture Morpheus. And in Star Wars, Luke and his friends almost get crushed to death in the garbage disposal, but they manage to escape, but they're being tracked by the bad guys, by Darth Vader and his command. Then the next plot point is all is lost, which is the death of the old. This is the moment when the main characters seemingly have lost everything, including hope and meaning. The story threatens to grind to a complete halt. the initial goal now looks even more impossible than ever before, and usually something or someone dies. It can be physical or emotional, but there is some kind of death or whiff of death in all is lost. But when something old dies, it makes way for something new to be born. So it's a death rebirth is happening. It's a major deal in the hero's journey. So this is when Morpheus is kidnapped, and the location of Zion, humanity's last safe haven, is compromised in the Matrix. In Star Wars, it's when Obi-Wan gets killed by Darth Vader in the lightsaber duel. And then, after all is lost, is the dark night of the soul. That's when the new starts to be reborn after the death of the old. So the main character hero has now hit rock bottom and is wallowing in his hopelessness. This is the "why hast thou forsaken me, Lord" moment. Mourning of the loss of what has died, the dream, the goal, the mentor, the love interest, or whatever that has seemingly died, is what this dark night of the soul is, going as deep as possible inside, reaching new depths to find a solution, to change. So Neo and his team, they come to the tragic realization that they're going to have to pull the plug on Morpheus before he can reveal too much to the agents. That's in the Matrix. And in Star Wars, Luke mourns the death of his mentor and friend Obi-Wan, and the death of Obi-Wan also signals the possible downfall of the whole rebellion. Then we are reaching Act 3, breaking into Act 3. And what happens here, usually thanks to a fresh idea or new inspiration or last-minute thematic advice from the B-story, love story, or from the love interest usually. The main character now chooses to try again. They have new hope. In the Matrix, Neo is reminded of some crucial information he gleaned from the Oracle, and this gives him the confidence to take up arms and save Morpheus from the agents against impossible odds, and try to save Morpheus against all odds, and Trinity goes with him. In the Star Wars, the rebels discover the flaw in the Death Star by analyzing the plans, and it gives them one last hope to beat Darth Vader. Luke is still heartbroken, but he has to press forward to fulfill his destiny. Then comes the grand finale, the storming of the castle. The stakes are now ultra high, and the odds of success are slim to none. The heroes have renewed their spirit and learned from all experience to implement the final plan to defeat the bad guys. In Star Wars, Luke uses the Force to make the impossible shot, 1 in a million shot, to take down the Death Star against all odds. And in Matrix, Neo proves that he indeed is the one. Unplugging from the doubt created by the Oracle, he saves Morpheus and takes out Agent Smith with godlike powers. Then the final shot, or the final image, or return with the elixir, which is usually kind of the opposite of the opening image or opening shot, proving visually that change has now occurred with the hero, and because of him, he has also changed his ordinary world back into balance, or to a better place for him. And in the Matrix, this is Neo has gone from a bored programmer hacker to a superhero who can fly and save the world, basically. And Luke has been transformed into a honored hero that he always wanted to be, and a Jedi fighter, and the rebellion rejoices. So that is the hero's journey, analyzed with 2 very famous movies, and you can find plenty more online if you want. But what I'm going to talk about now is a little bit trying to tie this into the spiritual journey. So I made my own diagram here. It's not perfect by any means, but I'm going to try to talk it through to sort of show how this hero's journey actually is also the spiritual journey in so many ways. So you start out on the spiritual journey. You start out in the known, in the conscious reality that you think is real, and you have been taught is real, and you are used to from growing up. But maybe you have some problems in your life. It could be disease, it could be this and that. You have some problem, and at some point you might want to find a solution to that problem. Maybe you're not happy. Maybe there's can be many different ways this problem presents itself. And usually it comes to a head, and there is a catalyst, so it triggers the necessity for change in you. So at first you might be hesitant, like the heroes in the movie, and you don't really want to go into the unknown. And the unknown is, of course, a symbol. In the movie, the unknown is a different reality, physically different reality. But in real life, in the spiritual journey, you're moving from the conscious you into the subconscious realms of yourself to look for the solution for your problem, even though that might also be symbolically expressed in the physical reality around you. But basically the spiritual journey is going into the subconscious or the unconscious. So you are crossing the threshold into the unknown, into the subconscious, which means you have committed to make the change. You want a solution to whatever problem you're having. And then you start exploring this new reality and testing the limits, and maybe you even find some friend or some person you meet that is mentoring you and helping you. That many times will happen if you need any kind of mentoring or help. It doesn't have to be a lasting relationship or friendship. It can be just somebody you meet for 1 hour or less, and it can be a coincidence, so-called meeting, or it can even be a book that falls into your lap in the library with exactly what you needed to know. So there are many ways this can happen, but probably if you have been on the spiritual journey, you've probably experienced these kind of weird things happening once you commit to that change. And commitment is important. You have to be 100% committed to the change. You can't let anything hold you back. That is how the heroes in the movies, they're also very committed, very focused on the goal. That's how you have to be to change. So then there is, maybe you reach some kind of revelation or insight, and there is a big maybe a false victory or a false defeat in your life. Something happens that you either feel like, this sucks, never gonna work, or you feel that everything is going great. And then, no matter what, you will meet resistance, because after you have the insight is going to be tested. This is when the bad guys close in. And in reality, in a spiritual journey, this can be opposition from parents or friends, or even from your own mind, or both. It can be many different things, but usually the change, if you really have changed or trying to change, there will be tests, because otherwise how can you know that you have changed if you're not testing the change? So that's how you anchor the change in, so you know that it really has changed. And maybe there is an all is lost moment and a dark night of the soul in which everything seems hopeless. But as they say, it's always darkest at the crack of dawn. So this is when the true change, you have to sort of surrender that deep. You have to sort of let go that deep to actually change. It's like a death rebirth. So this happens every time you change a negative belief. Every time you dive down up into the subconscious and change some kind of belief system in the subconscious and unconscious, then there is actually a death and a rebirth. You're dying as the old person, even if it's not a major change. You're still dying as the old you and being reborn as a new version of you, which will reflect in your physical reality. And obviously, if you get enlightened, then this is a major death rebirth moment. But it also, on a microcosmic level, it happens every time you change any definition about yourself, especially from a negative to a positive one, or just removing negative ones is usually enough. So this is the major death rebirth moment. That's a major deal in the hero's journey, and also in the spiritual journey. So then, once you have the death rebirth moment and real change has now happened inside, you will see that the grand finale is that the internal change will now manifest in physical reality, and things will change for you. The problem you had might be resolved, or at least some of it, and depending on how much you have changed. But that is the grand finale of that cycle, and then you return to the ordinary world which you came from, to the known again. But now you're returning with the elixir of wisdom. You have something to share. You have proof of concept that this works. You can change internally, and your whole physical reality changes because of it. So you have gained some wisdom, and you have something to share with others by that. So that is how the hero's journey and the spiritual journey are aligned. They are the same thing, but in the movies they are symbolic, which is also why movies are so they're hitting us so deep, because they're very archetypal. This blueprint is extremely archetypal because it's based. Remember that it's based on all the myths in the world are based upon this blueprint, because the blueprint contains the whole blueprint for how to change as a human being into different versions of yourself. And it's also a blueprint for enlightenment, but you have to repeat it many times. Usually you don't get only one go around and then you're enlightened. You have to deal with many different buried belief system and negative beliefs in the subconscious. So that's the journey. You repeat this spiral again and again, and each time you remove something new and you clean yourself more and more, and at some point you will have the major death rebirth moment when your ego self dies into the soul consciousness. And so that is basically my take on the hero's journey and the spiritual journey, and how they are really closely related. And I hope you enjoyed, and I really recommend it to check out the books I've talked about, and next time you watch a movie you'll probably be surprised to see that, hey, this is true, they really are based on this blueprint.